Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the last Grand Water Trine, which is coming through this weekend. It's being activated by Mercury, who has recently turned direct in the sign of Scorpio. This is it. This is the grand finale. We have experienced several months of this Grand Water Trine being active and reactivated by planets, especially Mercury, going back and forth several times. So this is the last one. I'm going to give you horoscopes for all 12 signs today. I'm going to give you a list of final things to think about and watch for. I think this is the perfect time to do it since technically it's coming in over the weekend, but here we are on Friday. We might as well prep for it now. So that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. We've done some research and we found out that a lot of people watch the channel but are not yet subscribed. If you could take a second to click subscribe, it helps us tremendously. We appreciate it. Give us that thumbs up. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, of course. That's nightlightastrology.com. We are now in the midst of our 12th annual Kickstarter campaign. The last days of every calendar year on this channel for quite a long time now, if you've been around Nightlight for a while, you know, are dedicated to raising funds to support the channel and the free content that we create year round. No paywalls, no subscriptions. And a lot of what we do is also rooted in an accessible pricing model, need-based tuition, sliding scale tuition for all of our courses. The Kickstarter acts as our best sale on the year for all of our programs, which also helps us or enables us to offer that flexible pricing so that people of all socioeconomic backgrounds can find studying astrology more accessible. We have some of the best professional training program in the world. I believe that wholeheartedly. And it makes me feel really good to know that anyone can come and study with us. So anyway, on that note, if you like the channel, if you get a lot out of it, please consider supporting it. I'm going to take you over to the Kickstarter campaign really briefly. When you head over to the campaign, you are going to see, let me just get here. Sorry, guys. Here we go. So when you head over to the Kickstarter campaign, you'll see on the right-hand side, there are a series of rewards. When you support the channel, you can pick up horoscopes for the year ahead. It's 6 hours worth of content thereabouts. The Astrology of 2026 talk, which is exclusive through the Kickstarter, a variety of master classes, class passes to all of our 4 years worth of curriculum. So we have a ton of really good things when you donate. And I'll tell you more about the rewards at the end of today's talks. If you want to learn more about what the rewards are and what they entail, stick around at the end of today's talk and I'll tell you more. We are on really good pace right now, but every day we need 20, 30 backers to meet our goal. And that means if you're listening to this and you haven't yet donated, consider heading over. You can find the link in the description of this video or in the comments section pinned to the top. Head over there. Even $5 donation helps the channel. We're going to see if we can't get to 2,043 backers by New Year's Eve. Thank you to everyone who's already donated. This is how I support myself, a team behind the scenes. So it is deeply appreciated. Okay, well, on that note, let's turn our attention to the real-time clock as we do. And here we are. We're going to take a look at Mercury creating the final Grand Water Trine. So Mercury's recently, in the past week, turned direct. We spent some time this week talking about Mercury's appearance as a morning star. Now, if you didn't watch that episode on the sort of messenger and some of the ancient motifs of Mercury appearing as the morning star, check that episode out because that's going to give you a lot more to work with given the framework of today's horoscopes and Mercury's role in the last Grand Water Trine. So anyway, you can see Mercury coming through, creating the Grand Water Trine with Jupiter in Cancer, who's retrograde, Saturn in Pisces, also Neptune in Pisces, North Node in Pisces. So it's a pretty watery situation. Now, I want to give you some context for this. We're going to go back in time a little bit. Actually, first, just note that the Grand Water Trine perfects between now and Sunday. By Monday, the Grand Water Trine will have passed. And then Mercury next week will be getting into the opposition with Uranus and the final trine to Neptune. That's another, of course, that's a big event we'll be talking about next week. But for now, between now and the end of the weekend, we're talking about Mercury rolling through the trines to Jupiter and Saturn, creating one last Grand Water Trine moment. Now, if we go backward in time, we're going to take this all the way back to late October. It's in late October that we start to see the first Grand Water Trine configuration getting started. So here you can see Mercury and Mars coming together and creating the Grand Water Trine, which is not totally perfect between Jupiter and Saturn. Those two planets got progressively closer between October and December. But here's the first, and this would have been late October that these two planets, Mars and Mercury, first activated this. So especially with respect to Mercury, think late October, what was happening around late October. Mercury is getting to the point where it's now perfecting that process from the standpoint of its final moment of the Grand Water Trine, and that's because it retrograded. So if we take this forward a little bit further, we're going to notice we get into November, and by November, Mercury and Mars have gone into Sagittarius, and the Grand Water Trine is getting activated again, but this time it's going to be by the Sun in Scorpio. The Sun in Scorpio is now moving through, and this is about mid-November. So that activates right around the 15th, 16th, 17th of November. And then following close behind it is Venus. Venus's Grand Water Trine moment what has just occurred, like very recently. So if we take this forward, you're going to see Venus was activating this right before Thanksgiving in the United States, and coming through, the space of Thanksgiving week, basically last week. So then we have, during that period of time, Mercury had retrograded backward into the Grand Water Trine and been a part of reactivating that trine about late November. This is around the 22nd or so. So we can see it's moved in stages. Now we have the final moment of this Grand Water Trine, which is taking place here this weekend with Mercury one final time. So that's the total timeline of this Grand Water Trine. So that's from late October all the way through early December. That's several months worth of a very powerful configuration, element-based, water-based configuration in astrology. I'm going to give you some final thoughts on this Grand Water Trine, and then we're going to do some horoscopes given the final configuration. And these horoscopes are going to focus on Mercury's placement because it's the fast-moving planet, so we can think of it as something like a trigger planet. What I want to also do today is we're going to focus a little bit on the Purushartas again. So as we go along, I'll focus on the whole sign house of Mercury and Scorpio in your chart for horoscopes, but then we'll also sort of zoom out and keep in mind those three houses connected philosophically in ancient astrology: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. That'll be a way of tying the themes of Mercury's house placement in Scorpio together with a larger set of themes through the other two houses. Okay, so anyway, that's our agenda. Let's get into it. The 5 things to watch for. So these, to me, are some of these encapsulate things that we've mentioned at every single previous Grand Water Trine moment, and some of them are a little bit more, what do we want to say, cumulative. So first on my list is plain and simple. When water signs abound, the opportunity for emotional healing occurs. What is emotional healing? I feel like that's a good starting point. Well, I don't have the final say or word on this, but as I've understood it throughout my time as a counseling astrologer, what I would say is that when you have strong watery transits and someone experiences healing, one of the ways that healing happens is for a movement of pent-up energies to be released creatively, in a way that's like cleansing. The healing experience can be something that doesn't have to be traumatic or about pain or grief. It can be simply about releasing something that's pent up emotionally. And a Grand Water Trine allows for that flow. So over the past couple of months, you may reflect upon what kinds of stored emotions, memories, and patterns are being released in powerful emotional moments, or in powerful moments of creative emotional release. I think, for example, one of the things that happened for me during this Grand Water Trine, which I've been talking about on the channel, is I finished my book. That was such a powerful release. Now, of course, part of this for me has been that the Grand Water Trines are all configured to my sun because Jupiter's stationed on my sun in Cancer in the 3rd house. So the sun in the 3rd house in Cancer with Jupiter on top of it for me has been about a long process of writing and a kind of creative written transmission. But that has felt like years. I mean, the process took me 2 years to write the book. And the process leading up to writing the book between my last book and this book was 16 years. So, if you go back to the starting of the writing of my last book, it was a full nodal cycle, 18 to 19. So a lot of stored emotions being released for me creatively. Now, there was some healing there, some catharsis, some processing of grief, and some processing of pain. But I would also just broadly describe it as a significant release. And that's what I mean when I say emotional healing. That doesn't have to look like trauma therapy. It doesn't have to look like my feelings were hurt and now they feel better. Emotional healing can be such a complex thing in terms of storing and releasing or processing or moving of emotional, let's call it data. So keep that in mind, that how emotional healing has looked for you might not be textbook therapeutic kind of emotional healing. But what's moved, and how has this process allowed for you to reflect on how you feel? That leads me to number 2. These Grand Water Trines have given us the opportunity for deeper emotional insight, deeper emotional awareness, and hence deeper emotional intelligence. I would say that on this level, and I tried to reflect on what my own experiences have been, and again, what I've seen from others that I work with, who I work with. And one of the things that I reflected on, and this may have to do again with the placement of Jupiter on the sun in my chart, because the sun is emblematic of fathers, and I feel like I've had a crash course in my role as a dad. And there's been a lot of insight around, well, the primary like emotional bonds in my life, my dogs, my wife, my girls, and there's been a lot of deeper insight about how to be present, more present, deepening of presence. This isn't like I was not present before, but there's more presence now. There's more capacity for presence and my ability to be emotionally bonded in healthy, happy ways has increased. So sometimes the deeper emotional insight or intelligence of a Grand Water Trine is about exposing those emotional bonds or attachments that are unhealthy. And it can be very illuminating. Some of them may even have to be released, have to be let go, people that have to be let go of, bonds and attachments that aren't healthy. And even anything, it doesn't even have to be a person. There are substances in our lives. There are lifestyle habits and patterns that create a sense of emotional dis-ease, that our emotions become unregulated, we become ungrounded, in part because we're trying to address pleasure or happiness emotionally with the wrong things or the wrong rhythms or the wrong patterns. And any deeper insight or awareness into what actually makes us feel good and what does not could have been a really significant part of this process and is now coming to a head. This is quite literal, but I seriously can't believe how literal I've seen this play out. It is played out so literally over the past couple of months. And sometimes I forget how literal astrology can be because it's often so metaphorical. It's symbolic, and therefore there are all of these analogs that show up. But sometimes it's just literal. Water is liquid and fluid. And so whether it's hormones or hydration or chemicals in the body or drinking alcohol, anything involving chemicals, fluids, and liquids, that the intelligence surrounding their use or their balance or their appropriate the appropriate relationship with them. I need to hydrate better, or I'm drinking too much alcohol. For example, I've seen at least a dozen people come through my programs who, we share a lot actively in our programs about what we're seeing and experiencing astrologically. People have been talking about how literal, and another thing though is any kind of, I've seen people dealing with dishwashers and washing machines in the house breaking down. What do they call those? Softeners, water softeners needing to be updated. Issues with plumbing, like it's profound. So don't count out the literalness of liquid. And the other way is the metaphorical liquids, which could be like the chemical balances of things like hormones, hormone therapies, hormone replacements, hormone balancing, the right herbs or natural supplements or dietary, dietary choices that can more intelligently balance the body's chemical. There's like rivers flowing through our body, blood, water, hormones, all these different kind of chemical rivers. So keep that in mind. Number 4, in Indian philosophy, as an element, water is closest to the Purusharta that's called Kama. Kama is bliss, happiness, enjoyment, emotional satisfaction. Like I'll give you an example. Last night, I'm recording this just after Thanksgiving. I record these always a week in advance. For Thanksgiving, someone brought pie, and I ate a piece of it and didn't realize that this pie had been purchased from whatever, the grocery store, and had corn syrup in it. I do not eat corn syrup. I haven't had corn syrup in my diet for years. It's just something that I came to realize about myself doesn't feel right. I'm not trying to preach or anything. So anyway, I had this huge ass piece of pie that had corn syrup in it. I couldn't believe it. And the reason that I knew it had corn syrup is because I started feeling really sick. And I was like, I eat pretty healthy, so sugar sometimes hits me a little hard, but I started feeling really messed up. And I was like, no, this is, what is it? And like Hilda's like, what is it? No, she hears someone in the driveway. So I was like, oh yeah, this doesn't feel right. This isn't the pleasure that I thought I was going to receive from eating this. So the reason I make this connection is because water is close to Kama. Kama is the experience of happiness and pleasure, which is natural to human life, whether it's sex or having fun with friends or going to a concert and hearing music you like or dancing or any of the things we do. So last night I was feeling really gross after this and just like sick to my stomach. And I came back and I was like, how am I going to feel grounded and happy again? And I sat down next to Hilda and I just started scratching her ears, and she like crashed into my lap. And I just sat there for probably like half an hour. The girls were playing or whatever, and Ashley was reading a book, and I was just sitting there playing with Hilda's head. And gradually my emotions and my body started regulating. And I looked, and she was in heaven. And that's such a dog thing, right? Like you scratch their ears, whatever. They're just, it's so instant. It's like if you scratch me, I'll drop into my bliss body. Just watch me. It takes 2 seconds. And watching her drop into her little bliss body, I dropped into my little bliss body. And before you know it, I think my body was processing the chemicals it was not used to having in my body. But all of that made me realize, yeah, I made the right choice years ago to refine what pleasure looks like. That tastes good, but it doesn't feel good later. And so Kama is really the study of what not just feels good immediately, but feels good later. The wisdom of Kama is the wisdom of making the choice in the moment that says, not just what will this make me feel now, but even more importantly, what will this make me feel later? And that awareness, and so like, obviously I had no idea that I was eating pie with this chemical in it or whatever. But how did I get back to my healthy, happy body? I got back to it by playing with Hilda and watching her drop into her animal body, then kind of getting back to mine. Anyway, so it's a good way of thinking about karma. What does the wisdom of happiness look like? Not just what will it make you feel right now, but what will it make you feel later? You can see she's in her little bliss body right there. All right. What's been washed away or cleansed? Quite simply, water is a purifier. And so you can simply look at the past couple of months and say, what is the process of purification been? What has needed cleansing or purifying? Like when people have cuts, we clean it with water, Water is the thing. Everything comes from water. Everything sort of returns to water. I remember, speaking of dogs, we had a black lab and I was living out in the country with him. Excuse me. And when it was his time to die, we found him by the pond. There's a pond in my grandfather's backyard, an artesian well-fed pond. And he went to lay down next to the water and pass. Like, why do we do that? Because it's comforting, And it's so beautiful. I'm sure there's interesting chemical explanations or whatever, but I think that often animals will go to water to pass. Something very comforting about that. So anyway, right now you can think about the healing of the great feminine, the great waters, having washed through over the past couple of months. Just ask yourself, what in me has been washed clean or has been purified or cleansed? All right, well, these are just brief reminders because I swear to God, I've never talked about water so much on the channel in one couple of month period. But what I want to do now is let's get into some horoscopes. Let's remind ourselves of where all of this has been taking place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to eliminate everything from our chart perspective. Let's just make sure I've got this. There we go. All right, let me just turn off one Siri. Okay, here we go. Getting notifications popped up. All right. So we're going to advance this to get Aries on the ascendant. Now, I'm going to go through the Purushartas. We're going to remind ourselves of the philosophical area of life highlighted, but we're going to try to translate that through the focal point of Mercury and Scorpio. Mercury's retrograde was in Scorpio. Mercury's appearing as the morning star in Scorpio this week. We did some horoscopes for the full moon on the live stream this week. We took a look at Mercury's appearance and some of its meanings. Mercury is also the fast-moving planet, therefore the activator or trigger of the last Grand Water Trine. So we're going to connect the Purusharta to the whole sign house of Scorpio. Watch how this works. Let's start with Aries. So for Aries and for all of the fire signs, these are taking place in the moksha houses. That's 4, 8, and 12. So moksha means liberation or freedom, and it is specifically associated with the process of relinquishing attachments that keep us sort of dense. We're trying to move into a light body. We're trying to evolve and grow spiritually, which means that even if we inhabit a material form, even if we move about a universe that is comprised of all these different dimensions, and part of them are material in nature, there's nothing wrong or bad with any of that, but we're trying to let go of the imprisoning attachments that keep us bound rather than free in spirit. And the moksha houses have to do with processes in life that are about liberation. So the big picture for Aries right now is liberation from entanglements, from suffering, entanglements that keep us tethered and bound. Now, Mercury is the focal point of the last Grand Water Trine in the 8th house, the place of soul contracts, debts, penalties, karmic exchanges with other people, the give and take. questions about sacred reciprocity that exist in the 8th house. So there's been a process of evaluating soul contracts for Aries folks, and that process now is coming to a head. So you're looking here at the question of in human relationships, which are natural, there's going to be bonding and attachment, which is also natural. There's nothing wrong with attachment per se. But the difference between healthy attachment and unhealthy is that healthy is rooted in love. Unhealthy is rooted in objectification. So we're looking very closely at that level of things in relationships within the broader question of liberation from karma right now for Aries. All right, we're going to move to Taurus. So for Taurus, we're moving from the moksha houses to the kama houses. Well, now we're talking about something that water naturally shares as an element with kama. So water was associated with pleasure and emotional and psychological fulfillment and happiness, which is a natural part of human life. For Tauruses right now, the question is about what really brings happiness, the kind of happiness that facilitates spiritual growth, the kind of happiness psychologically, mentally, socially, communally, interpersonally, that is a true wellspring and that is life-giving. Now, some of this may have to do with what kind of validation you seek and from who. What are you cultivating within yourself mentally, emotionally, physically? And what kind of happiness can it bring? How much can it bring? And what is unhealthy or unrealistic to demand or expect? For example, expecting that one social group or community or one person or spouse, or even one ability or skill you develop, or something that you call forth from your own intelligence or nature, say in the 3rd house, how much can you really expect for those things to deliver you from the universal problem of suffering? I think that there's a lot right now for Tauruses to look at when it comes to what really provides satisfaction and happiness, joy, connection, validation, excitement, and also like what are the limits? So we can't expect salvation through emotional fulfillment or happiness. There's always going to be, I think about this for myself, for example, you write a book, you think, well, once I finish this book and publish it, you imagine that it will somehow solve things, or its promise is to fulfill you in a way that nothing else can. And I've heard this said by many artists that you come to realize that, if you make a movie and you get to Hollywood, or if you make an album and it gets a lot of critical acclaim, there'll still eventually be a place you come back to where you have to face the same old things. And you can't expect creative success or output to keep you happy forever. There are ebbs and flows in our happiness in life. So I think there's a deep exploration of happiness emotionally that Tauruses are looking at right now. And the focal point is Mercury in the 7th house of love and relationships, of interpersonal dynamics, of what is fair to expect. How deeply can your needs be satisfied and met by another person? What can be shared that can truly lighten the load because there's a deep level of connection and satisfaction? And then also, how much is too much? You can't expect someone else or any relationship to shoulder the pain of existence. It's like, it's just part of it. So it's things that we're just going to have to learn how to deal with. So some thoughts there for Tauruses. Let's move on to Geminis. So for Geminis, we move into the Arcta houses. All the air signs will have the Arcta houses configured. And the focal point is going to be Mercury in Scorpio. So the Arcta houses are about the material world and about thriving and surviving, or surviving and thriving, I should say, in that order. So for Geminis right now, the question of building and developing assets, building and developing your career, your work in the world, building a sense of material security and prosperity. Those are all big questions. But Mercury is the focal point in the 6th house, which creates hard work, discipline, duty, perseverance, the grind of the work. It's not a fun house in terms of the kind of work that's required to succeed materially. This is the house where a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hurdles and obstacles that you have to work around. You have to be innovative. You have to have stick-to-itiveness. And you typically need something bigger or transcendent to care about for the grind to be worth it. Over a long enough period of time, anything that's simply rooted in the ego tends to break down in this house. Eventually, the biggest empires, corporations over a span of a long time, they fall apart. That's the nature of the 6th house, called mala fortuna, bad fortune. And it means things in this house are getting carried down. They're being weighed down into the underworld. Everything, there's dilapidation and decay and ruin, and all of that is a constant in the material world. It's like entropy. The only way that you can make it through the reality of the 6th house is typically to have something bigger that you care about, that makes the suffering worth it, that makes the adversity worth it. There's a lot of reflection on what makes it worth it right now for Geminis. And what have you been building or developing materially, professionally, and what kind of healing or insights have you gained over the past couple of months in these connected houses? All right, we're going to move this along now to Cancer. Now, for the water signs, this is Dharma. All the water signs have the Grand Water Trine taking place in your Dharma houses. And that, for Cancers, means that Mercury as the focal point is in your 5th house. Now, this focal point has to do with creative authenticity. It has to do with what provides a very deep level of creative happiness and satisfaction, makes you feel authentic. It helps you, this kind of creativity helps you get into some of the deeper layers of your own nature. There's a kind of personal renaissance happening for Cancers with Jupiter in your 1st house. It also is intimately connected to the ongoing development of faith, study, religion, spirituality, maybe even the opportunity to travel or take a pilgrimage of some kind has come up. Or, I think of my wife, who got the opportunity to do some meaningful travel during these Grand Water Trines that she'll do in the spring. The opportunity to do so arose during this Grand Water Trine configuration, and it's kind of like a goddess pilgrimage that she's going to take. I'm really excited for her. But and she's also, during this time, she's been taking a painting class and has been painting goddesses. I think her story is a good illustration of the symbolism. For Cancers, it's about expanding your sense of who you are, deepening your sense of who you are, creatively, religiously, spiritually, in terms of learning, in terms of self-development. And then with Mercury as the focal point of this Grand Water Trine, again, it's about creative gestation, creative speaking of something creative into the world. So there's almost like a creative proclamation that's making itself known in your life right now, or there's a kind of creative communication that wants to take place. Any of this could also relate to things like parenting, pregnancy, 5th house topics like that, religion, spirituality, teachers, travel, or self-development and health and body and identity, things like that in the 1st house. Okay, let's move on to Leos. Now, for Leos, we come back to the moksha houses, all the fire signs again in the moksha houses. The focal point of this final Grand Water Trine for you Leos is in the 4th house of home and family, of ancestry, of roots. You could even say of soul history. And that's a little like abstract, but sometimes there's a feeling of almost like deep cellular past life memory that's somehow coming to the surface, or that may express itself in terms of ancestral or family patterns. And I would watch for that right now. This Mercury, ultimately, like the other moksha houses, is pointing toward liberation from entanglements. For Leos, there's a pretty powerful story being told about, I would say, family, parental, ancestral karma, the way that your emotional bonds with other people that you live with more intimately or immediately, as well as the history of your own family karma, how you were raised, is offering some opportunity for reflection and insight and healing and maybe releasing of stagnant or stuck emotions. The potential for something very therapeutic around home and family exists for you right now if you're a Leo. That could have something to do with speaking what you actually feel to other family members, or really deeply receiving how other people are feeling or seeing something, allowing for deep, meaningful conversations to occur. And then also, again, the broader question of what needs to be let go of. That's the moksha. What is it time to surrender and give back, because holding on to it is not going to take me in the right direction. That could be very psychological. It could be somehow literal. It could be with relationships, or something as concrete as a living environment, or something as abstract as a psychological pattern. All right, let's move along to Virgos. We're going back to the comma houses, the earth signs in the comma houses. So the focal point is the third house for Virgo. There's a lot of emphasis here on learning and your mind and your own psychological makeup. These houses have to do with happiness. We're talking about this with Taurus, and what gives true, lasting happiness. And also becoming wiser about how happy can we expect to be in this world. Dealing with disappointment well, dealing with frustrations or sadness or so-called negative emotions, and being able to live with them is a really crucial part of how we develop a healthier, more robust ability to be happy. Like, I can be really happy because I know how to be sad. I can be really happy because I know that some things take a lot of effort and work and aren't easy or aren't fun. But because I've accepted that and learned how to do hard things, it becomes easier to be happy with smaller things. It's interesting. And I would say, particularly for Virgos right now, an exploration of what you could get better at, where you could improve in terms of your skills, your mental, psychological, communicative abilities, and putting in some real effort to develop things that you're not as good at may provide a lot of happiness right now. And rather than receiving any kind of feedback socially or relationally in a purely negative state, open yourself up, become receptive to, maybe some of this could be received constructively. Maybe some of the feedback you're getting right now could be taken as a challenge. And if you accept that challenge with grace and humility and curiosity, let's see, how much happier could you become? On the other hand, if you are seeking the wrong kinds of validation and you're never feeling like you're getting the kind of feedback in relationships or social situations that makes you feel really loved or seen, you might be with the wrong people seeking validation or happiness in the wrong ways. And that might be providing you some meaningful feedback in terms of your own self-esteem, your own self-perception. Maybe there's an opportunity right now to love yourself more or see yourself more clearly, and therefore separate yourself from social dynamics or relational dynamics that can't please you, because you're seeking validation from people who simply aren't going to give it. That might be it as well. So these are the kinds of things to watch for anyway, for the focal point of the Grand Water Trine being in your third house. All right, let's move along to Libra. So for Libra, we're back in the Arcta houses. All the air signs have the Arcta houses configured, and we're looking at the focal point of Mercury in the second, the financial house. So question here being, what is the focus around things like money, resources, time, energy? Mercury in that second house can have you thinking a lot about what you want to be in possession of. And maybe there's an opportunity to refine or reflect upon what you have, what you own, what you possess, and what you desire, maybe what you desire that you don't yet have. But the opportunity here is to reflect upon what's going to provide you with real, lasting emotional security. For some people, having a lot of money saved up or maybe invested is going to create a feeling of ease and safety. But for other people, you may find that a more balanced approach where maybe you save some money, but you also go and try to enjoy a little bit of what you have. Maybe opening yourself to how you use your resources so that, it's like some people are so frugal that they don't enjoy anything. You might need more of that. Some people are, they spend so much so that they end up constantly feeling worried that they should be setting some aside. Whatever the case might be, the point is the opportunity to reflect upon assets and resources, and material things, including your job, including your work life, but all of it is happening in terms of the pleasure and emotional satisfaction of the water. So for all air signs, the question is about things like job, money, security, work in the world. A certain degree of like power, prestige, or influence materially is often a concern when planets are in these houses. But along with this is a deeper question about emotional depth, emotional intelligence, emotional healing, and like real emotional satisfaction or happiness. All right, let's move to Scorpio. So we're back to the Dharma houses, and what an opportunity there is here for the water signs. When they're in your Dharma houses, it's like such a unique moment to reflect upon your own true nature and identity, and the opportunity to revise or reflect on how you act and behave. I know a Scorpio who recently reached out and said, if you took something in this way that I was saying, I just wanted to say I'm sorry because I realized it could have come across like this and I didn't mean to say it like this. And I've been trying to work on these things, this person said, because of the way I was raised. I was like, I know they're a Scorpio rising. And I was like, oh, if that isn't Mercury retrograding in your first house, it's like the opportunity to reflect upon how you communicate and how you come across, and whether or not your words, your speech, your character, your psychology, your personality is creating positive, emotionally healing and uplifting, satisfying connections with other people. This is an opportunity to reflect on what is real, what is true, what is creatively authentic, what is personally enriching and substantive, that creates happiness in you and in your connection to everything else you do. That's the powerful focal point of Mercury appearing as the morning star in your first house. It's like there's a new way. It's a time for me to refine and deepen my capacity to communicate in meaningful, healthy, harmonious ways, even despite the fact that I might be a little bit more deep or penetrating or intense, probing as a personality. Still, how can I, how can I make sure that that's happening in a way that, for example, aligns with soft, sweet teachings about truth and love, Jupiter in Cancer in the ninth, that's creatively enriching and imaginative and sweet with the Piscean planets in the fifth. So this kind of existential personal reflection on happiness and your own true nature, really profound for the water signs. All right, let's move on to Sagittarius. So we go back to the moksha houses for the fire signs. For Sagittarius, of course, the Mercury placement is in the 12th house. Really powerful opportunity right now for Sagittarians to reflect on the unconscious dimensions of their mind and emotional makeup. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say that you are a Sag rising, and occasionally, like a good Sag rising, you say something that's true-ish, but maybe lacking a little bit of tact. Call it the foot and mouth syndrome for Sagittarians, right? This would be a Grand Water Trine where you might be getting feedback, or somehow you may be starting to see or understand that, gosh, sometimes I say things that really hurt other people, or sometimes there's a blind spot that I have in communication with other people. So, your ability to identify that blind spot could coincide with these grand water trines. The moksha houses with a focal point of Mercury in the 12th can be really helpful, releasing mental, emotional toxicity, patterns that keep us stuck, your inability to see your own blind spot it's a problem for all of us. But for Sagittarius right now, there's a really special opportunity to understand more about communication and what works and doesn't work, and your own blind spots. And also, who have you surrounded yourself with potentially, right? That amplifies a mental or emotional environment of disease or sickness or a lack of health. It's amazing how I've seen this so many times. People will get sick or they'll start to feel really bad or miserable. And it'll be, after several years after a new job or several years after a new relationship. And, I'll be able through the transits to track the appearance of something that's making a person not feel well to the time at which they started the job or the relationship. And I can see that pattern very lightly, trying to draw someone's attention to that connection without necessarily, blaming someone or something, or saying, oh, you have to get out of that relationship or you have to quit that job, but simply drawing the awareness to that. Again, that connection can be very healing, because sometimes it's not that you have to leave the job or the relationship to get out of the toxicity that's creating disease. You just have to bring more awareness to the connection. And that awareness can then facilitate some changes in how you manage or interact that can act like bridges to be more conscious with. You can, and then you experience less disease because you drew consciousness to a space that was maybe problematic. These are the kinds of things I would hope for you Sagittarians right now. All right, let's go to Capricorn. So with the earth signs, we're back in the comma houses, but now the focal point for Capricorns is Mercury in the 11th. So we're talking about happiness. And remember, there's a natural connection between the element of water and the area of comma. Happiness, satisfaction, emotional fulfillment, natural part of human life. These houses reflect the same thing that water tends to reflect in terms of our seeking of emotional fulfillment in life. Very social. We can't seek a lot of, there's one house out of the three that has more to do with emotional fulfillment that is somehow within ourselves, and the way we develop intelligence and the way we develop skills and abilities and the things we cultivate that give us a feeling of being good, being taking some emotional satisfaction from within ourselves. So that's certainly part of it. But house 7 and 11 are very social, interpersonal relationships, sex, marriage, intimacy, close connections with others. And then the 11th house, social, cultural, professional validation in social groups and circles. For Capricorn right now, the focal point is on that greater social sphere of the 11th house. What groups, what communities, what allies, what colleagues, what friends, what networks of people provide you with happiness or contribute to feeling happier in some way in life. There's a real inflection moment right now for Capricorns upon that part of life, and whether you're with the right people or whether it's the right kind of happiness. I mean, the 11th house can be very opportunistic. Oh, you're wealthy, you have the name brand clothes, you have a nice car, you move among people who are, also maybe wealthy or successful, and isn't that great? Well, not if it makes you feel dead inside, then probably not. So being able to reflect on where everyone has to have some feeling of being socially loved, accepted. There's some dimension of social public life that provides us with some measure of happiness. So we can't avoid this conversation just because we think it might be somewhat superficial to care what other people think. It is not superficial to care what other people think. It's superficial to care what the wrong people think for your soul. It's like there's a saying I heard, and it was a meme or something I saw probably on Instagram, and it was like, don't spend too much time caring about how people judge you that aren't living the kind of life that you yourself would like to be living. That's good feedback, right? That's very 11th house kind of feedback. You know, if you're receiving criticism or lack of validation from people who really have their shit together and are living the kind of life you want to live, and there's a genuine way you can see and feel that, then that feedback's really valuable because it's going to help you align and grow and evolve. I remember when I was in art school, the artists that I really loved, who I appreciated, the kind of feedback they gave me, gold, you know, and I didn't take offense to it because I admired them. That's different than receiving criticism from people in some of my writers' workshops who are just jerks, whose lives I did not want to emulate. You know, many of them were struggling with alcoholism. You know, it's a common thing in art school, my experience anyway. So whatever, you get the point. All right. Well, not to be judgy there. All right. So let's move on to, so Capricorns, that's where your focus is. Let's move on to Aquarians. With Aquarians, we're back in the Arta houses. So these Arta houses are work in the world, achievement and accomplishment in the world. And for Aquarians, it is smack dab in your career house. So the focal point here is the connection between emotional happiness, emotional fulfillment, emotional health, emotional healing, and your career, your public role, your vocation, your role in the world, your responsibilities, your skills and abilities in the workplace, and a poignant moment of reflection or shifting or changing or realization in that area of life, connected more broadly to the material world that we live in, work in, earn in, and how we find some measure of happiness in the things that we have earned, the things we need to survive, etc. So that question of vocation, job, career, reputation, publicly or socially, connected pretty intimately to the 6th and 2nd house topics: work in the world, the things we're exerting ourselves to achieve, putting in a lot of sacrifice to achieve, the work we're doing to try to survive and thrive, to develop assets and acquisition, which contribute to a feeling of security in the world. And, you know, it's like I've said this before, it's like Maslow's hierarchy. The base of Arta is just survival. You build up to things like, I don't know, do I have the TV that I want? Or, you know, do I have my guitar that I was finally able to purchase in my 40s that I could never afford before? You know, stuff like that. We all live in that world where there's things. And the question for Aquarians right now is between things, how much happiness they give you, and work in the world, and what's the right fit or match for things like skills and intelligence, professional direction and focus, and how those things contribute to this overall question of material happiness. All right. Last but not least, we have Pisces. This takes us back into the Dharma houses to close, and the focal point is Mercury in the 9th, the place of higher wisdom. Every Dharma house has to do with the essence of something. The 1st and the 5th being the essence of you as a being, as a soul, as a creative. The 9th house has to do with aligning personal Dharma with an understanding of universal Dharma, which means what is real, what is true. Philosophy, sages, gurus, religion, spirituality, astrology, all things that are trying to help us understand a little bit more, lifetime by lifetime, about what is real, what is true. As we develop and evolve in our understanding, questions about who we are and our creative Dharma in this life also get clearer. So for Pisceans right now, the question is about authenticity, creative and personal authenticity. The focal point is on learning, education, spirituality, religion, and an opportunity to deepen that process of learning in the way that it can contribute to a feeling of personal authenticity and creative authenticity. So, you know, really powerful moment for all of these water signs. The water signs are, you know, it's like, what fulfills me is rooted in getting in touch with who I am and what's real. Really existential, powerful, especially for the water signs. So that has been our horoscopic exploration. A bit of a longer episode today, but this is the grand finale of the Water Trine. So I feel like we needed to just sink into it a little bit more. I hope this has been useful. After I sign off, remember, we are trying to get to 2,043 backers by New Year's Eve. I need your help. If you love this channel, if you like it, if you just got something good out of your horoscope, maybe it's worth $5 donation, especially if you've gotten something out of any previous work we've done on this channel in the past year. Your support means the world to us. We can't do this without you. We can't sustain such a generous business model without our Kickstarter going off every year. That's how we do it. We've been doing it 12 years. It's nothing much to it other than pitching in and helping if you like the content. So, and pick up a reward when you do. After I sign off, I'm going to tell you about what the rewards are and which ones you may like. So hope you're having a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again next week. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you about the different rewards that are available when you donate and support this year's Kickstarter. Remember, our goal is to get to 2,043 backers by New Year's Eve, and your contribution makes a huge difference. But when you do contribute, there are a variety of really cool gifts that we offer only once a year through the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm going to take you over to the Kickstarter and tell you about what those are. You can also find more information about almost all of the rewards on our website, nightlightastrology.com. Any of the programs that you might want to take, all of the details about those programs, their start dates are all located on the website in case that's a question. But at the top, you'll notice on the right-hand side, when you're scrolling down on the Kickstarter, you're going to see the different rewards that are available at different pledge levels. The basic pledge level is the Astrology of 2026 calendar. This is a really nice PDF calendar that we make that gives you a feel for what transits I'm going to be covering on the channel as the year goes on. It's also really nice to know what the transits of the year are day by day. So if that appeals to you, it's the most basic level of pledge, and you can get that. Scrolling down, you can also bundle any of these. So if you want multiple rewards, you can bundle them upon checkout. You'll see how that works when you're in there pledging. Scroll down a little bit. There's a new talk that I've made. This is a brief talk on the value of silence and having a silent or meditative practice in your life, how you might get one started. And again, just what I see is the value of that for astrologers. Scroll down a little bit more, you'll see the Astrology of 2026 audio and video. This is an exclusive lecture where I break down all of the major transits and astrological signatures for the year ahead. I'm not releasing this anywhere else, so if you want my insights for the entirety of 2026, this is a great reward to pick up. Scroll down a little bit more and you'll see that I have a guided meditation that I've created for your year ahead. This is more about spiritually, psychologically, emotionally focusing yourself for the year ahead. It's a special kind of guided meditation and visualization that I've created. So if that sounds appealing, you could pick that up. It's called The Oracle Within, a guided meditation. Scroll down a little bit more and you'll see that my new book, which I plan on starting at the latest by the summer of 2026, you can get in on that chapter by chapter first draft release in audio and text form, just like The Oracle Speaks, my first book that I just finished. This is a new book that I'm starting in 2026. So if you wanted to hop in on the early release for that, you could do that there. Scroll down a little bit more and the description of that book and what it's all about is right there for you to check out. Year ahead horoscope readings. If you want to receive about 6 hours worth of content going through horoscopes for 2026 for all 12 rising signs, this is a great offering that's going to give you, again, about 6 hours worth of horoscopes for all 12 signs for the year ahead. I'm not releasing anywhere else, so check that out. Then you'll notice as you scroll down a variety of different archived masterclasses from previous years. There's one on the lunar nodes in ancient astrology. That's about 10 hours worth of content. The Magic and Mystery of the Fixed Stars, again, about 10 hours of content. Zen and the Art of Zodiacal Releasing, and the Alchemy of the Outer Planets. These are all lengthy master classes that I taught in previous years, about 10 hours of content per package. So a really great deal on some advanced content there. If you are brand spanking new to astrology, check out Astrology for Complete Beginners. This is a course that we have. It's about 10 to 12 hours worth of content that's meant for people who are brand new to astrology. This is like astrology level 0. So, but if that's you or someone you know who might benefit from just like a basic introduction to astrology, check out that audio video course. You get a website where it takes you through everything. You can watch it at your own pace and time. It's all recorded. The next offering is Ask 3 Horary Questions. You purchase this one and you get the ability to write to me anytime throughout 2026, 3 separate occasions to ask 3 separate horary questions, and I respond to those via email. That's a really great service. That saves you significantly off the course of horaries because you're bundling 3 together. So a really nice gift to use for yourself. Ask a couple of questions to me through horary form throughout the year. Scroll down and you'll see that I have only 30 of these. These are year ahead mini readings, very exclusive because I don't give readings anymore. I have students and staff taking clients through a special reading service. So my readings are very limited to classroom spaces, but I have 30 of these exclusive mini readings where I give you my take on your biggest transit for the year ahead in your birth chart. Those are personally recorded and sent to you. Then you'll see the 2025 Masterclass bundle, the 2024, and the 2023. These are, like upwards of 30 hours of content that are going to give you really deep exploration of a variety of topics. So those masterclass bundles are taking multiple series from previous years and bundling them together in one package. And you can see all the topics listed there through the 2025 bundle, the 2024 bundle, or the 2023 bundle. A really great way to package together a lot of intermediate to advanced level content that I've taught in the past. Then if you go down, the new 2026 masterclass series that I'm teaching is on the decans. So if you're interested in learning more about the decans and the upcoming 2026 masterclass, check this out. It's on sale right now through the Kickstarter. Won't be this cheap again. So a really good way to save on joining that program in 2026. If you have any questions about that program, you can find more information on the website through the page that's dedicated to the masterclass. Scroll down and you'll see we also have a new Nightlight Guild membership. This is ideal for people who are already enrolled in Nightlight or in the kind of Nightlight pipeline as students and are looking for more practice, more study at an intermediate to advanced level. We're meeting twice a month and doing live client readings, live horary workshops, a lot of practice with advanced concepts and techniques. So this is ideal for people who are really looking to continue developing within the Nightlight sphere. And so students in Nightlight, check this out, come study with us. This also includes every monthly webinar that I teach on the year, plus twice monthly meetings that are 2 hours each for advanced practice. So really nice to have a guild membership. This is something I've been wanting to develop for a while. Check that out. Scroll down, you'll see both of my wife's herbal apprenticeships, year 1 and year 2. If you like Ashley and her work, her YouTube channel, we own the same LLC. So we just thought we'd throw in her herbal apprenticeships at a discounted rate if you want to join those. And then really our most popular item are the class passes. So you'll see at the very bottom, you can attend 1 Nightlight course, 2 in a bundle, 3 in a bundle, or 4 in a bundle. And what that allows you to do at a really significantly discounted rate, this is our best sale of the year. We only do it through the Kickstarter. In those class passes, you can bundle and take year 1, year 2, year 3 in Hellenistic natal astrology. You can take the horary class, or you can take any yearly master class. And those class passes are going to allow you to then bundle together our programs and go through as many as you want. You could bundle 2 of them together, 3 or 4, or just 1. And it's going to be the best sale that we have on our courses for the year. So those are the different rewards we offer. If you have any questions about any of them, feel free to email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We deeply appreciate your support. And I hope that in exchange for donating and supporting this free content year round, that you will also find a valuable reward in one of these offerings. Remember that your donation supports a staff of people, myself, my family, the free production of all of this content year round. We deeply, deeply appreciate your contribution. All right. Hope you're having a great day. See you later. Bye.